Operation Genesis. How Agent Orange created Vietnam's hidden superhumans. Welcome back to Untold Vietnam Chronicles, where we dive into the most classified and disturbing stories from a war that changed humanity in ways the public was never meant to know. Tonight we're uncovering one of the most heavily suppressed military secrets of the 20th century, a biological accident that created abilities beyond human imagination and sparked a cover-up that continues today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button for more shocking revelations that prove reality is stranger and more terrifying than fiction. Like this video if you want to discover how a chemical weapon designed to strip leaves became the catalyst for human evolution and why governments around the world are still hunting its survivors. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with our global community of truth seekers. Now prepare yourself, because tonight we're exploring Operation Genesis, the classified study of Vietnamese villagers who survived Agent Orange exposure and developed unprecedented physical and mental capabilities that challenged everything science understood about human biology. Chapter 1: The Accident That Changed Everything. March 10, 1962. Operation Ranch Hand was in its infancy, and the American military was just beginning to understand the devastating effectiveness of chemical defoliants in jungle warfare. Flight Lieutenant Robert Hayes was piloting a UC-23 provider over the Mekong Delta, spraying Agent Orange across suspected Viet Cong supply routes. What happened next would remain classified for over 50 years, and would launch one of the most secret research programs in military history. Hayes's aircraft experienced mechanical failure over the village of Tan Binh, forcing an emergency landing that ruptured the aircraft's chemical storage tanks. Over 2,000 gallons of concentrated Agent Orange spilled directly into the village water supply, creating the highest recorded exposure levels in the history of chemical warfare. The immediate aftermath appeared to confirm the worst fears about Agent Orange toxicity. Within 48 hours, 43 villagers had died from acute chemical poisoning. Within a week, the death toll reached 78. Military medical personnel who responded to the incident expected that any survivors would suffer severe long-term health effects and shortened lifespan. But something extraordinary began happening to the 27 villagers who survived the massive exposure. Instead of dying from toxic exposure, these survivors began demonstrating physical capabilities that exceeded normal human parameters: enhanced strength, improved reflexes, accelerated healing, and most remarkably, apparent immunity to further chemical exposure. Dr. Sarah Chen, the military physician who first documented these anomalies, initially attributed them to adrenaline responses and survivor psychology. But as weeks passed, the enhancements not only persisted, they intensified. Chen's classified reports describe survivors lifting objects weighing over 400 pounds, healing from severe wounds in days rather than weeks, and demonstrating reaction times that were 3 times faster than normal human baseline. Most disturbing, the survivors showed no signs of the cancer's neurological damage and birth defects that typically resulted from Agent Orange exposure. Instead, they appeared to be developing into something that was fundamentally different from normal human being. Chapter 2: Project Enhanced Genesis. The Pentagon's response to Chen's reports was swift and comprehensive. Within 2 weeks of the first anomaly reports, a classified research team was deployed to Vietnam under the cover of routine medical assistance to chemical exposure victims. The team was led by Dr. Marcus Webb, a biochemist who had worked on classified military enhancement programs since the early 90s. Webb's previous research had involved attempts to create super soldiers through drug enhancement, radiation exposure, and genetic manipulation, all of which had failed to produce sustainable results. But the Agent Orange survivors represented something unprecedented: human enhancement that appeared to be both dramatic and stable, achieved through accidental chemical exposure rather than deliberate manipulation. Webb established a covert research facility near Tan Binh, under the cover of a medical treatment center. The surviving villagers were told they were receiving ongoing care for chemical exposure, while actually serving as subjects for intensive study of their enhanced capability. Initial testing confirmed Chen's observations and revealed additional anomalies that were even more extraordinary. The enhanced individuals showed a physical strength 5 to 8 times normal human baseline, reaction times averaging 0.03 seconds, normal human average, 0.15 seconds, wound healing rates 10 to 15 times faster than normal, complete immunity to infectious diseases, enhanced sensory capability, particularly night vision and hearing, improved cognitive function, including enhanced memory and pattern recognition, but perhaps most remarkably, blood tests revealed that the survivor's DNA had been fundamentally altered at the cellular level. Agent Orange exposure had apparently triggered controlled genetic mutations that enhanced rather than damaged human biological systems. Chapter 3: The Enhancement Mechanism. Webb's team spent 18 months trying to understand how Agent Orange exposure had created these extraordinary enhancements. Their research revealed a biological mechanism that challenged fundamental assumptions about toxicology and human genetics. Agent Orange contained dioxin compounds that were designed to disrupt plant cellular function by interfering with protein synthesis. But in humans, the massive exposure levels at 10 din had triggered what Webb termed adaptive genetic cascade, a biological response where cellular damage activated dormant genetic sequences that enhanced rather than impaired biological function. The key was the exposure level. Normal Agent Orange exposure caused cellular damage that led to cancer and other health problems, but the extreme exposure at 10 bin had overwhelmed normal cellular repair mechanisms, forcing affected cells to activate emergency genetic protocols that hadn't been used in human evolution for thousands of years. These genetic protocols appeared to be evolutionary remnants from earlier stages of human development, when environmental pressures required enhanced physical and mental capabilities for survival. The massive chemical exposure had essentially forced human biology to revert to more primitive, but more robust genetic configurations. Webb's research indicated that the enhancement process was irreversible and heritable. Enhanced individuals would pass their modified genetics to their children, creating a new subspecies of humanity with capabilities that far exceeded normal human limitations.
But the enhancement process was also extremely dangerous. For every survivor who developed enhanced capabilities, nearly 2 people died from toxic exposure. The genetic activation process required precise chemical conditions that were almost impossible to replicate deliberately. This created both an enormous opportunity and a terrible ethical dilemma for military researchers. They had discovered the key to creating genuine superhumans, but the process involved deliberately exposing subjects to chemical levels that would kill most participants. Chapter 4: The Secret Breeding Program. As Webb's research progressed, Pentagon officials began considering the strategic implications of enhanced humans with military applications. A classified committee was established to evaluate the potential for using Agent Orange exposure to create enhanced soldiers for American forces. The committee, codenamed Genesis Group, included representatives from the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and classified military research divisions. Their mandate was to determine whether controlled Agent Orange exposure could be used to enhance American military personnel while minimizing casualty rates. Initial proposals included voluntary programs where special forces personnel could choose to undergo enhancement procedures with full knowledge of the risks involved, but these proposals were rejected as too dangerous and potentially illegal under international law governing human experimentation. Instead, the Genesis Group developed a more subtle approach, identifying individuals who had already been exposed to Agent Orange and monitoring them for enhancement development, then studying their genetics to develop safer enhancement techniques. This led to the establishment of Operation Bloodline, a classified program that tracked Agent Orange exposure victims throughout Southeast Asia and identified individuals who showed signs of genetic enhancement. These individuals were then subjected to intensive monitoring and study, often without their knowledge or consent. But the most controversial aspect of Operation Bloodline was its breeding component. Enhanced individuals were encouraged to reproduce with other enhanced individuals through various incentive programs, creating second-generation subjects with more stable and pronounced enhancement. The children of enhanced individuals showed capabilities that exceeded even their parents' abilities. Second-generation subjects demonstrated physical strength, 10 to 12 times normal human levels, cognitive abilities that approached genius levels, and sensory capabilities that bordered on the supernatural. Chapter 5: The Vietnamese Response. American researchers weren't the only ones studying Agent Orange enhancement effects. North Vietnamese and Viet Cong intelligence services had also identified the anomalous capabilities developing in certain villages and had begun their own investigation programs. Dr. Nguyen Vinh Duc, a biochemist working for North Vietnamese military intelligence, had independently reached many of the same conclusions as Webb's team. Duc's research confirmed that massive Agent Orange exposure could trigger genetic enhancements, but he also discovered something that American researchers had missed. The enhancement process was influenced by genetic factors that varied significantly. Different ethnic population. Vietnamese villagers who had been exposed to Agent Orange showed enhancement rates of approximately 60%, compared to less than 20% for American personnel who had been accidentally exposed to similar level. This genetic predisposition meant that Vietnamese populations were far more likely to develop enhanced capabilities from Agent Orange exposure, giving North Vietnamese forces a significant potential advantage if they could learn to control the enhancement process. Duc's team began developing techniques for deliberately inducing controlled Agent Orange exposure in military volunteers. Unlike American researchers, who were constrained by ethical concerns and oversight committees, Duc's program operated with fewer restrictions and was able to conduct more aggressive experiments. By 1968, North Vietnamese forces had successfully enhanced over 200 soldiers using modified Agent Orange exposure techniques. These enhanced soldiers demonstrated capabilities that made them extraordinarily effective in jungle warfare: superhuman strength for moving heavy equipment, enhanced night vision for operations in dense vegetation, and accelerated healing that allowed them to recover from wounds that would incapacitate normal soldiers. Chapter 6. The Enhanced Soldiers. The first combat deployment of enhanced North Vietnamese soldiers occurred during the Tet Offensive of American forces encountered enemy personnel who demonstrated physical capabilities that exceeded anything in their combat experience. Intelligence reports from the period describe encounters with North Vietnamese soldiers who could wounds that should have been incapacitating gear, demonstrate tactical awareness, and reaction speeds that seemed almost supernatural. Staff Sergeant Michael Thompson, a Special Forces operator who encountered enhanced soldiers near, described the experience in his classified debrief. They moved like machines but thought like generals. Every reaction was perfect. Every decision was optimal. It was like fighting opponents who had been specifically designed to kill soldiers. Like American casualties in areas where enhanced soldiers operated was significantly higher than in conventional combat zones. Enhanced North Vietnamese forces could carry out operations that would have been impossible for normal human soldiers: multi-day missions without rest, precision combat in complete darkness, and assault operations that required superhuman physical capability. But the enhanced soldiers also demonstrated psychological changes that concerned their own commanders. Enhanced individuals showed reduced emotional responses, increased aggression, and decreased empathy for both enemies and civilians. The genetic modifications that improved physical capabilities appeared to have also affected personality and social behavior. Some enhanced soldiers became difficult to control, showing decreased respect for authority and increased willingness to act independently of command structure. Others became psychologically unstable, showing signs of paranoia, megalomania, and antisocial behavior. These psychological effects created significant challenges for military units trying to integrate enhanced personnel with normal soldiers. Enhanced individuals often felt superior to their unenhanced comrades and showed decreased willingness to follow orders from officers they considered inferior. Chapter 7. The American Enhancement Program. Faced with evidence that North Vietnamese forces had successfully deployed enhanced soldiers, Pentagon officials authorized the acceleration of American enhancement research under Operation Prometheus. The program's mission was to develop techniques for safely enhancing American military personnel using insights gained from studying Agent Orange survivors.
Dr. Webb's team was given unlimited resources and authority to conduct enhancement experiments on volunteer subjects from Special Forces units. The volunteers were told they were participating in experimental medical treatments that could improve combat effectiveness, but they weren't informed about the connection to Agent Orange or the genetic modification implications. The American Enhancement Program
faced significant technical challenges that North Vietnamese researchers had avoided through less ethical experimental methods. American researchers had to develop enhancement techniques that met safety standards and legal requirements that limited their experimental options. Initial attempts to replicate Agent Orange enhancement effects using controlled chemical exposure produced disappointing results. Lower chemical concentrations were safer, but rarely triggered genetic activation, while higher concentrations caused death rates that were unacceptable for voluntary programs. Webb's team began exploring alternative enhancement methods based on understanding the genetic mechanisms activated by Agent Orange exposure. They developed techniques using targeted radiation exposure, experimental drugs, and controlled infection with modified viruses to trigger similar genetic changes. These alternative methods produced some success in creating enhanced soldiers with improved physical capabilities, but the results were less dramatic and less stable than those achieved through Agent Orange exposure. American enhanced soldiers showed strength and reflex improvements of 2 to 3 times normal levels, compared to 5 to 8 times improvements seen in Agent Orange survivors. More troubling, American enhanced soldiers showed higher rates of psychological instability and medical complications than their Vietnamese counterparts. The enhancement techniques that worked safely in laboratory conditions often produced unexpected side effects when deployed in combat environments. Chapter 8. The cover-up begins. By 1969, both American and North Vietnamese forces had enhanced soldiers operating in Vietnam, but both sides had strong incentives to keep these programs classified. Enhanced soldiers represented capabilities that could fundamentally change the nature of warfare, but they also raised legal and ethical questions that neither side wanted to address publicly. International law had no provisions for dealing with genetically enhanced soldiers, and the Geneva Conventions didn't address the use of biological enhancements in combat. Both sides realized that public disclosure of enhancement programs could trigger international condemnation and potentially lead to war crimes prosecutions. American officials were particularly concerned about the connection between Agent Orange and enhancement effects. The military was already facing criticism about the environmental and health impacts of chemical defoliation programs. Revealing that Agent Orange could also create superhumans would intensify scrutiny and potentially lead to demands for compensation that could bankrupt the defense budget. The solution was a comprehensive cover-up that involved multiple agencies and lasted for decades. All research related to Agent Orange enhancement was classified at the highest levels and removed from normal military record. Enhanced soldiers were transferred to special units with classified missions, and their medical records were altered to remove evidence of their capabilities. Most importantly, the original Agent Orange survivors at Tan Binh were relocated to a classified facility where they could be studied and monitored without public knowledge. The villagers were told they were being moved to a better medical facility, but they were actually being imprisoned in a research compound where their genetic secrets could be studied indefinitely. The North Vietnamese cover-up was equally comprehensive, but took a different approach. Enhanced soldiers were integrated into elite units with classified missions, while the enhancement program itself was disguised as conventional special forces training. Enhanced capabilities were attributed to superior training and equipment rather than genetic modification. Chapter 9. The Cold War Competition. The discovery of human enhancement capabilities launched a secret competition between American and Soviet research programs that continued long after the Vietnam War ended. Both superpowers recognized that enhanced soldiers could provide decisive military advantages in future conflicts. Soviet intelligence had learned about Agent Orange enhancement effects through their Vietnamese allies and had begun their own research programs. Soviet researchers had access to different chemical compounds and were willing to conduct more aggressive experiments than their American counterpart. By the mid-1970s, Soviet enhancement programs had produced soldiers with capabilities that exceeded even the most successful Vietnamese enhanced individuals. Soviet enhanced soldiers demonstrated strength levels 15 to 20 times normal human baselines, cognitive abilities that approached computer-level calculation speeds, and sensory capabilities that allowed them to function effectively in complete darkness or total silence. American researchers struggled to match Soviet achievements while working within legal and ethical constraints that limited their experimental methods. The American enhancement program remained focused on developing safer techniques that could be used on larger numbers of volunteer subjects. This led to a strategic disadvantage that concerned Pentagon officials throughout the 1970s and The competition intensified during the 1980s, as both sides developed new enhancement techniques based on advances in genetic engineering and biotechnology. Enhanced soldiers became central to strategic planning for potential conflicts, with both sides developing tactics specifically designed to deploy enhanced personnel for active. By the end of the Cold War, both American and Soviet forces included enhanced units with capabilities that would have been considered science fiction just decades earlier. These units remained classified and their existence was never acknowledged publicly, but they represented a fundamental change in the nature of military capability. Chapter 10. The Modern Legacy. The end of the Cold War didn't end enhancement research. It privatized. As government funding for enhancement programs decreased, private military contractors and pharmaceutical companies began developing their own enhancement technologies based on declassified research from earlier programs. Modern enhancement research has moved beyond chemical exposure to focus on genetic engineering, nanotechnology, and cybernetic enhancement. Current enhancement technologies can produce capabilities that exceed even the most successful Agent Orange survivors, but they also raise new ethical and legal questions about the future of human evolution. Enhanced individuals from original Agent Orange exposure are now in their 60s and 70s, but many continue to demonstrate capabilities that exceed normal human limitations. Their children and grandchildren have inherited enhanced genetics that have become more stable and pronounced over generations.
Intelligence agencies from multiple nations continue to monitor these enhanced families, studying their genetics and capabilities, while maintaining secrecy about their origins and abilities. Some enhanced individuals have been recruited for classified military and intelligence operations, while others have been encouraged to pursue careers in fields where their abilities provide advantages. Most remarkably, some enhanced individuals have demonstrated capabilities that continue to evolve and improve over time. Third-generation descendants of original Agent Orange survivors show abilities that exceed their grandparents' enhancements, suggesting that the genetic modifications are continuing to evolve in unexpected directions. Current research suggests that the enhancement effects triggered by Agent Orange exposure may have activated evolutionary potentials that hadn't been expressed in normal human development. Enhanced individuals may represent an evolutionary leap that could eventually spread throughout the human population through natural reproduction. Chapter 11. The Global Hunt. Today, intelligence agencies from around the world are conducting covert operations to locate and study enhanced individuals who descended from Agent Orange survivors. These operations, collectively known as Genesis hunting, involve surveillance, recruitment, and occasionally kidnapping of individuals who show signs of genetic enhancement. The stakes are enormous, because enhanced genetics represent potential military and economic advantages that could shift global power balances. Nations that can successfully harness enhancement technologies could gain decisive advantages in military conflicts, economic competition, and technological development. Enhanced individuals are valuable not just for their personal capabilities, but for their genetic material, which can be studied to develop new enhancement technologies. Blood samples, genetic material, and even reproductive cells from enhanced individuals are worth millions on black markets that serve government research programs. Some enhanced individuals have learned to hide their abilities and live normal lives to avoid government attention. Others have been recruited into classified programs where their capabilities
are used for military and intelligence operations. A few have organized resistance networks dedicated to protecting enhanced communities from exploitation. The hunt for enhanced individuals has created an underground economy of smugglers, information brokers, and protection services that help enhanced people avoid government surveillance. This shadow economy operates in parallel to normal society and includes individuals with capabilities that range from modest enhancements to powers that approach science fiction. Modern enhancement research has also created new categories of enhanced individuals through deliberate genetic modification, chemical enhancement, and cybernetic augmentation. These artificially enhanced individuals often have capabilities that exceed natural Agent Orange enhancements, but they also face health risks and psychological challenges that natural enhanced individuals avoid. Chapter 12. The future of human evolution. Current scientific evidence suggests that Agent Orange enhancement effects have created a new branch of human evolution that will continue developing for generations. Enhanced genetics appear to be dominant traits that are passed to offspring, with increasing expression over time. Projections based on current enhancement populations suggest that enhanced humans could represent a significant percentage of certain regional populations within the next century. This demographic shift could fundamentally alter social, political, and economic structures. As enhanced individuals gain influence in various fields, the implications extend beyond individual capabilities to include potential changes in human society and culture. Enhanced individuals often demonstrate different values, priorities, and social behaviors than normal humans, which could lead to the development of distinct enhanced cultures and communities. Some researchers believe that enhanced humans represent the beginning of speciation, the development of distinct human subspecies with different capabilities and characteristics. If this proves correct, humanity may be entering a period of rapid evolutionary change that will create multiple human variants with specialized capability. Other researchers warn that enhancement technologies could lead to social stratification based on genetic capabilities, creating permanent castes of enhanced and unenhanced humans with fundamentally different opportunities and life experience. The military implications remain significant. As enhancement technologies continue advancing, future conflicts may be fought entirely by enhanced soldiers with capabilities that exceed current human imagination, while normal humans become irrelevant to military operation. But perhaps the most important question is whether enhanced humans will remain loyal to normal human societies, or will eventually develop separate interests and object. Some enhanced individuals already show signs of considering themselves superior to normal humans, which could lead to conflicts that determine the future direction of human civilization. Epilogue. The Secret Evolution. Agent Orange was designed to strip leaves from trees and expose enemy hiding places. Instead, it may have triggered the next stage of human evolution, creating capabilities that governments around the world are still struggling to understand and control. The villagers of Tan Binh, who survived massive chemical exposure in 1962, became the first members of a new kind of humanity. Their descendants continue to develop capabilities that challenge fundamental assumptions about human potential and biological limitation. The governments that created these enhanced humans through chemical warfare now find themselves competing to harness and control the results of their accidental experiment. Enhanced individuals represent both enormous opportunities and existential threats to normal human society. The cover-up that began in Vietnam continues today, maintained by intelligence agencies that understand the implications of enhanced human capabilities for global power structure. Enhanced individuals live hidden lives, their abilities concealed to avoid exploitation by governments that see them as resources rather than people. But the genetic changes triggered by Agent Orange exposure cannot be contained indefinitely. Enhanced traits are spreading through human populations, carried by individuals who may not even realize they possess enhanced capabilities. Within generations, enhanced humans may be common enough that concealment becomes impossible. When that day comes, humanity will face questions that were first raised in the jungles of Vietnam. What does it mean to be human when some humans possess capabilities that far exceed normal limitations. How will society adapt to the existence of people with superhuman ability? And will enhanced humans choose to coexist with normal humanity? Or will they pursue their own evolutionary destiny? The answers to these questions were written in the genetic code of Vietnamese villagers who survived Agent Orange exposure over 60 years ago. Their legacy continues to shape the future of human evolution in ways that remain hidden from public knowledge, but increasingly influence the hidden workings of global power. Operation Genesis proved that chemical weapons could change human biology in fundamental and irreversible ways. The superhumans created by that accidental exposure represent both humanity's greatest achievement and its greatest challenge. Their existence reminds us that in the modern world, the line between evolution and extinction may be thinner than anyone imagined, and the next chapter of human development may be written not by natural selection, but by the unintended consequences of military chemistry. The enhanced humans of Vietnam changed everything. The question now is whether normal humanity will survive what they've become.